Quick shout out to my patrons. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible, so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I realized that we went way past the halfway mark of the year, and I haven't done like a half-year video. So I thought, why not talk about the top 5 books that I've read so far this year. They just happened to be 5 books. I didn't plan it that way, but I was looking through. I have a column on my rating tracker where I marked my favorite books of the year, and there just happened to be 5 there marked. So it worked out perfectly. The first book up is Jade War by Fonda Lee. This is book 2 in the Green Bone saga, and y'all, this book there was like twist after twist after twist. Just when I thought I knew what was gonna happen, another twist happened. Fonda Lee's characters are absolutely amazing. They're realistic characters in a fantastical world. It's almost urban fantasy because it feels like this world could be real life, but it's not. It's probably, I think it's based off of real life countries, but it's still a made-up world, so it's still fantasy. And it's just so well done. Her writing, I can imagine in my head in crystal clear pictures. I don't have to guess if I'm imagining this right or not, because she writes in such a clear way that, at least for me, I know exactly what's going to happen. Or, no, let me say that again. I know exactly what's happening as I'm reading it. I don't have to second guess. Am I imagining this right? Am I imagining this character looking and acting the correct way? I know exactly how I'm supposed to be viewing these characters. I really, really love this series and Fonda Lee's writing. If you've seen my video before, I did a video on authors I'm obsessed with, and Fonda Lee was one of them. I also did a dedicated review on Jade War, which I'll link down below. Go and check that out if you want. I won't talk too much more about the plot of the book or the characters, because that would give away spoilers for the ending of book 1, since this is book 2. But I will say I am reading the last book in this series next month, Jade Legacy. I'll be reading in August, and I can't wait. It's taken me way too long to read this book, and I'm super, super excited to get to it finally. The next book on my list is a book that I would never have picked up on my own, because simply I didn't know it existed, and I don't tend to gravitate towards science fiction, although now I'm starting to read more and more science fiction, mainly because of this book. One of the reasons. This was a patron pick of mine, picked by Lena at Lauren Lullabies, and this is The Space Between Worlds by Micah Johnson. And y'all, this book is, I believe, a standalone, so I can talk a little bit about the synopsis of it, what it is about. This is a science fiction dystopian book with some really great LGBT representation in it. An outsider who can travel between worlds or universes discovers a secret that threatens her new home and her fragile place in it, in a stunning sci-fi debut that's both a cross-dimensional adventure and a powerful examination of identity, privilege, and belonging. And all of these descriptions that I'll be reading off come from Goodreads, so if you want to find more about that book or see reviews for it, I will put all the links down below. So what I loved about The Space Between Worlds, one, there's fantastic world building, which I forgot to mention with the Green Bone saga. Fonda Lee also has amazing world building, because at least I had to remind myself that it was a made-up world. So back to Space Between Worlds. Fantastic world building, great characters, a compelling storyline that had so many twists and turns. It kept me interested throughout the whole book. I didn't want to put the book down. I didn't want to stop reading. And usually I don't get to that part until I'm like 100 pages away from the end. But this book, I almost binged nearly the whole thing. And it was just so good. So if you're looking for a great standalone science fiction book about cross-dimensional traveling, dystopian worlds, LGBT representations, this is a great suggestion for that. And it's also pretty short compared to some other books. Next book up on the list is a self-pub book. That's Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Reig Peterson. This is the first book in her debut epic fantasy series, River Rising. Spanning different countries and cultures, it will take you on a journey of love and loss, the search for identity, and a thrilling fight for survival. What I loved about this book, great world building, fantastic characters. It's, as Helen stated in the interview I did with her just like 2 weekends ago now, this is a book full of side characters having their own story, and I absolutely love that because I tend to gravitate towards the side characters instead of the main character, and to have a book full of side characters is absolutely fantastic in my world. The prose, again, held my attention throughout the story, which is really hard to do, especially in a longer epic fantasy book. This is, not a short book, but it didn't feel long. It helped my attention through the whole thing, and I just wanted to keep reading it. And we've got our side characters are also morally gray characters, defined by the author herself in our interview, they're all morally gray, but they all believe that they're doing the right thing, even though it goes against each other. They believe that what they're doing is the right thing, which I absolutely love, because then it makes the reader have to figure out, who are we supposed to side with? Who is actually doing the right thing? What is the right thing to do? So it left kind of the reader having to figure out along with the characters. My next book up is The Seventh Cadence by Jim Milbourne, and this is book 1 in the Continua Chronicles series. It's an action-packed fantasy adventure. After a supernatural and unforeseen calamity shatters the tentative alliance of the 5 realms, the Desert Dominion has returned to take back their homeland and restore their oppressive regime. As the Dominion readies their troops for invasion, the fate of the entire world rests in the hands of a fugitive scientist, a powerful pacifist, and an unseasoned prince, with little to guide them but their own ideals. With the freedom of a kingdom at risk, each must find their place in a world torn asunder. The Seventh Cadence is a sweeping high fantasy epic of war, found family, and reckoning with fate. What I loved about the Seventh Cadence is, again, amazing world building. You've got this epic world of all these different cultures and countries and magics coming into play, and it all just melds into one amazing world. The characters are great. They're very relatable, even though we're not in this crazy world. And just like the others, there's so many twists and turns. It kept me engaged during the whole book. And so that's The Seventh Cadence by Jim Milbourne. And the last book on my favorites so far this year list is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, which is book 1 in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. And y'all just listen to this description, because this is the perfect example of Marie Brennan's prose. All the world from Skirland to the farthest reaches of Aragia know Isabella, Lady Trent, to be the world's preeminent dragon naturalist. She is the remarkable woman who brought the study of dragons out of the misty shadows of myth and misunderstanding into the clear light of modern science. But before she became the illustrious figure we know today, there was a bookish young woman whose passion for learning natural history and, yes, dragons, defied the stifling conventions of her day. Here, at last, in her own words, is the true story of a pioneering spirit who risked her reputation, her prospects, and her fragile flesh and bone to satisfy her curiosity, of how she sought true love and happiness despite her lamentable eccentricities, and of her thrilling expedition to the perilous mountains of Vistra, where she made the first of many historic discoveries that would change the world forever. That is an example of Marie Brennan's prose in A Natural History of Dragons. I absolutely love it. It makes me laugh so much. Again, amazing world building. There's a theme here. The characters are so relatable. We've got Isabella, who will become Lady Trent, is like the geek that we all want to be. And it's just so unique. I haven't read a book like this ever, and I love it, and I can't wait to continue with this series. So those are my top 5 books that I've read this year. I have individual reviews for all of these except for A Natural History of Dragons. And that book, I will be on hosting a live show with She Was Only Evie and Stephanie at Mr. Just Reads this next weekend, the 30th, July 30th, at 2 p.m. on my channel. So stay tuned for that. I'll put the link down in the description below. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite reads so far this year are. Have you read any of the books I talked about today? If so, what did you think of them? As always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.